We are live back with a Monday edition of Your Wildest Fantasy Football Show. A interesting episode, we'll say, because
it's gonna be a fun one.
Right now, I'm not even sure if my internet's working right now. I might be talking to myself. I somewhat see Cody from time to time. I somewhat hear him. Now, I'm not. But hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can get through this whole show together, and this will be a communal experience rather than just me talking to myself because I'm offline trying to do an online show. And really, that's when we turn into some problems, is when you're doing a show offline that's supposed to be online.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, but I think we can do it. I think we got the power to do it or make it work.
The fact that you replied to me makes me a little better, but you did give me the eyes at one point, like, you look and sound crazy.
I just like doing the eye thing. I don't know.
Okay, that doesn't help me know. Do I look and sound crazy?
Like you're kind of frozen, but like at the same time, I can hear your voice. So it's okay. It's like podcast form, but on a video call.
That I don't think that's how video calls are supposed to go. But
I don't know.
For the sake of not having to show off this lack of just production failure for too long, and it's not the production failure, it's the internet. The same internet that I've been doing the show from for 30 episodes. So nothing that should be wrong. Nothing we can really do about it besides try to move forward. And if it's unbearable, Cody's just going to have to take the reins.
I'll do it. Just be my show. Just talk to everyone for about an hour.
You'd have control over everything.
Oh, that'd be great.
No argument. Everything you say is correct.
I mean, everything I say is always correct anyway. So it's kind of just like, without the argument, though, this time of having to defend it.
Well, let's get into the games for the weekend. Big win for Buffalo. Kind of
huge.
Trying to right the ship there after a big loss to the Dolphins. And not the Dolphins, Jaguars, and a close one against the Dolphins the week before.
Right.
Big thing here, I would say, not anything too big, but Ty Johnson for the Jets, 8.8 fantasy points. He's had 10 plus in the previous 4 games, and then 8.8 here. I think it's someone to look at with how much they're dumping down to the running backs and just using the running backs in the passing game. Not someone you're looking at as a high-end player, unless Michael Carter goes down, obviously, but could be a good bye week fill-in. There's definitely some running backs that are not going to be playing next week with Denver and the Rams on bye. So an opportunity to pick one of these guys or pick up Ty Johnson as a kind of low-end flex running back.
Right. They're playing Miami, so always encouraging when you're going to play a team with less opportunity to win. I don't know how to say it politely. But yeah, Ty Johnson's an interesting guy to consider. He does have a couple of touchdowns in this streak of double digits in PPR format. If it's in PPR format, I don't hate it. If you're considering picking him up and like stashing him, trying to figure out what you want to do with him. He doesn't get a whole lot of touches. But he's kind of making the most of it. Obviously, this game is not the game to look at in terms of efficiency. Just because they were playing Buffalo, he ran it twice for 2 yards. That's not extraordinary, but I mean, he ran it 4 for 21 the week before. So like he has talent to run on the ground in for the Jets, which do not have a good O-line.
It reminds me of McKissick a lot. Maybe not the same upside of McKissick, just because we've seen him in that role for a lot longer.
Right.
But an emergence nonetheless, and something that as a floor play might be able to get you through a week and maybe some of these other further bye weeks that are coming up later on as well.
Right.
As for the Buffalo side of the ball, Gabe Davis was the big secondary receiver here. He had 3 catches for 105, 13.5 in full point PPR. I don't think this says anything about you need to go out and get Gabe Davis. I think it says more about this being a revolving door of wide receiver twos in Buffalo. Emmanuel Sanders had 7.1 on 2 targets and 2 catches. Beasley had 3.5 on 2 targets and 2 catches as well. I just am not sure if the consistency is going to be there from either of these guys, and I would rather have a bench receiver where that's going to come. We talked a lot about Sterling Shepard earlier in the year, and if he's healthy, we know that he's going to see a bunch of targets, and that is something that I would rather, I think, have.
Right. Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley definitely were disappointing this game. Yeah, I don't know what to do with them. I have a couple shares of Sanders. I have a couple shares of Beasley. I might look to try to move them for someone like a Sterling Shepard or a lower end, wide receiver 3 who is going to be a consistent guy in terms of targets. But yeah, it was kind of discouraging to watch them play the Jets and both these guys to just kind of dud like that. Great day for Stephon Diggs. Great revival game for him. Like to see it, though. Like to see it.
Yeah, big game for Diggs. I mean, we knew Diggs was going to break out, and getting those touchdowns is going to be a big part of it, expecting a good end of the year for him, and that buy low window kind of closing after this week.
Right.
Moving on to the next game, surprise of the weekend probably, is Washington over Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay coming out of the bye, but they've lost 2 straight games.
Right.
I don't think there's much worry, I would say, from my
Huge
end.
worry. Huge worry.
Okay.
All the way around.
Brady's
Complete
done.
rebuild. Complete rebuild in need right here.
This is Overreaction Monday, so this is the time to get all that out.
Right. I mean, honestly, no, not really. Tom just looked like age kind of caught up to him there for a minute with those 2 picks real early on, and then the team just kind of struggled from there. It wasn't the day I think a lot of us expected. I know you said you were expecting big things from Mike Evans, #1 fantasy option this week.
Well, the numbers pointed to that, right?
Right, the numbers did. Like I didn't hate it. I thought it was kind of a cheesy one too, just because I wasn't as confident, but you were right there. But yeah, I don't think this is like going to be a recurring thing for the Bucks. Obviously, they had Brown and Gronkowski out. I think it's going to better days are set to come. But I think if one thing we can take away on a positive note was that Fournette looked good. I think it's good if you're a Fournette owner to finally see him despite the team. Like normally we're seeing him with the team go up, but it's nice to see him be the #1 guy when the whole team's going down. Like it's nice to see that sort of productivity. I don't know how the correct phrasing for it, but it was nice to see Fournette have a solid day despite the team's loss.
Yeah, the efficiency there, I think, is the word we were looking for.
I don't know, some sort of word. Just couldn't think of it. It's tough.
Yeah, they play the Giants next week, so if they don't rebound against the Giants, then I would say we have some real worry. But we expect good things from Tampa Bay going forward. As for the Washington side of things, I think the big story is Antonio Gibson.
Yep.
He's back, I think, is the overreaction here.
Right.
24 for 64, 2 touchdowns, had 2 catches for 14 yards as well, 21.8 fantasy points. What does this mean for his value going forward? In really, like, I'd say we're entering the most pivotal part of the fantasy season
Right.
with the last month of regular season football, like, or regular season fantasy football, trade deadline closing in a couple weeks. This could be a big time to, like, trade Antonio Gibson to keep him. Like, that could be a pivotal decision that makes or breaks your fantasy season.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, and he got 2 touchdowns, which I think really bolsters the day. Obviously, it brings him from like 13 points to 9 points? 9 points plus 12 would be 21.8. So 9.8. So obviously those touchdowns really bolstered him up to this monster day. Um, yeah, it was good to see, especially if you are a Gibson holder and you were like going through these weeks in which JD McKissick was outperforming Antonio Gibson. You're like, should I drop him? Should I trade him? I think you should sell high on him right now as best you can. Um, Perhaps for like, I don't know who you would do it for, but I think like just because of the inconsistency by Gibson and the injury concerns, I think like I mean, that's the shin thing, which I think is a real thing, but like, I don't know where you put him. I think I have him in like a Carter Gaskin-esque sort of area. And I think those are people who I think you would target just because I think they're going to give you about the same upside, but with more consistency than Gibson will.
Yeah, I would definitely look to move him for Carter if that is an option.
Mhm.
I wouldn't necessarily do it for Gaskin. I think you might even be able to sell a little bit higher just because of the name value of Antonio Gibson. I don't necessarily think you need to, but I
Mhm.
think you could. So I wouldn't be afraid to go for those bigger names a little bit and see if you can get people to bite on them and then work your way down to Carter.
Mhm.
I agree. It's encouraging to see the volume, 24 or 26 touches, let alone 24 carries. A lot of work for a guy who's dealing with an injury, and they were trying to limit his touches before the bye week. So it's encouraging to see that kind of volume. But Gibson hasn't really been efficient much at all this season. So that efficiency still lacking. And this offense, I don't think is one that's, I mean, Gibson is probably the most likely to score a touchdown, but this isn't
Mhm.
going to be an offense like Dallas or even like a solid offense like a Chargers that's going to score more points. I think this offense is one that maybe if you are buying like on weekly streaming defenses weekly, you see Washington and you're like, oh, I might be able to start that defense. So not necessarily the offense in which a lot of points are going to be scored consistently.
Mhm.
That makes me worried about Gibson. So if you can sell him, I would look to do so.
Right.
Moving on to, unless you had anything else from that game.
Uh, I just said tough day all around for Bucks and Gibson finally exclamation points and a happy face emoji.
Okay, perfect.
That's what's up.
Atlanta just stomped in this game. Over under was 55. Dallas scored 43 and they didn't get there. I think that says enough about
No
the
said.
day that Atlanta had.
Absolutely, it was absolutely pitiful from watching the game, but also fantasy wise for Atlanta. One person got double digits. It's Kyle Pitts in full point PPR. So um, it's kind of tough when your quarterback doesn't get double digits. Tougher when a wide receiver doesn't get double digits. Even tougher when a running back doesn't manage to get double digits. But when a tight end leads your team with 10 points, kind of have an idea about how the day is going to go. Dismal.
Yeah. From the Atlanta side, I think Cordell Patterson, like, we're not worried about that. We know
Nope.
the fantasy value that he brings.
Right.
The other guys in the backfield, I think, are more of the worry here, with Mike Davis potentially losing his job to Wayne Gallman. Now, it's hard to tell
Mhm.
because obviously the score here and a lot of backups were brought in. So it's hard to really tell where the carries went if you didn't watch the game that intently, and I did not. So just seeing the box score numbers, you obviously see Wayne Gallman 15 for 55 and a catch for 21 yards,
Mhm.
8.6 fantasy points. And you're like, is this something? Is Wayne Gallman the guy there? And I'd say he's not the guy there.
Mhm.
That might be an overreaction. Luckily, we're saying it on Monday, so it fits right in.
Overreaction Monday.
But I'd say Mike Davis isn't 100% in the clear for his snaps. He's not playing like the player that they brought him there to be, because I don't think they even saw Cordero Patterson as in an expansive role that he is in. So yeah, I would be very worried as a Mike Davis owner, like kind of changed our thoughts or changed my thoughts a little bit from last week to see him struggle so much and Wayne Gallman not play well. I mean, 15 for 55 is not a very efficient day, but to be on the field as much as he was, albeit in this kind of game, is something, I would say.
Right. It was. I mean, obviously, it's a blowout loss. Started off ugly, finished worse. So I think the snap count is a little skewed because of that. Davis got 20 plays, Patterson 15, Smith 19, and Gallman 23. So I really think that's just kind of part of the blowout. I don't think it was intentional, but I am with you where I would be a little worried. I guess like I've been worried for a while if you're a Mike Davis owner because it's Cordell Patterson's show. But Mike Davis is like, I don't think he's droppable because he gave you double digits, the first 5 weeks of the season. But I think he's someone that you don't have to play week in and week out anymore. He's someone who you're just going to have to keep an eye on and focus in.
Yeah, you're definitely not playing him next week. He only got 4 carries, so it's
Right.
really tough I wouldn't drop him yet, but I am on the cusp of it. When the volume comes very soon, I'm probably very close to dropping Mike Davis. As for Dallas, I think the thing that we got to see here, and again, maybe a little skewed by them putting up 40 points, which we don't necessarily expect to happen every week, although they are one of the teams that might put up 30 more weeks than that. We got to see how Michael Gallup affected the game a little bit. I think my 2 takeaways here were that I was worried a little bit, not much differently than I was worried before about Amari's target share. I mean, you just look at the numbers, you're not getting what you drafted as far as just looks. And we both know that that's one of the things that I look towards as one of my biggest things for wide receivers. And one of the reasons maybe that I'm so bullish on a guy like a Terry McLaurin, despite the production, is just the volume of targets that he gets from week to week. And we're not seeing that from Amari Cooper. We had 2 weeks where he had double digits, 3 weeks where he's had more than 6. And I mean, more often than not, it's like 3 or 4.
Amari?
Yeah.
Yeah. He led the team in terms of wide receiver snap count, but he's not getting the ball. Like he's just not getting looked at. Granted, when you're up 43-3, you don't need to throw the ball. unless you're Tom Brady and going for numbers. But like besides that, like most other teams are just going to run it like they did. So this game is a little skewed, but I don't know. Amari Cooper's one of those guys who's like, you know, he's got the upside potential for sure, but there's also like that huge gap between his floor and his ceiling, and it's not a high floor. It was interesting to watch, though. I feel like he's kind of just out there just so they can have a wide receiver to block sometimes.
He's a good, like, I don't think it's all his talent. Like, I don't think he is the complete problem there. I think there's just a lot of mouths to feed, and he's a very talented wide receiver. We see him get the ball, and I think he's kind of one of those guys that when you get the ball in his hands, he can make an explosive play, but you have CeeDee Lamb also who can do that. You have Tony Pollard who can do that. You have Zeke churning out like 4 or 5 yards. You have Michael Gallup back in the fold. Another guy that I was slightly worried about is Dalton Schultz.
Right.
I kind of said coming into the Gallup thing that was one of the people that I was worried about, and he did not see much yesterday. So yeah, you have 1 reception on 2 targets for 14 yards.
Right.
I'm worried about him. I don't know. They play Kansas City next week, so I feel like you could hold on to him, but I don't know that he would be my most trusted guy going forward.
He's not. I'll talk about my guy later, like I have been for the past 10 weeks now. But yeah, they have a lot of mouths to feed, for sure. I mean, 2 good running backs back there, 3 good wide receivers who all can make an argument for like needing the ball. It's a good problem to have for real football, to have all these mouths to feed. For fantasy, though, it's a little bit more challenging just to know who's going to go off each week.
Agreed. Going into New Orleans at Tennessee, this Tennessee stuff, this team and this organization. Okay, I'll preface this for anyone who doesn't know. My glitched out face. I'm a Colts fan, so I may have a little bias towards Tennessee.
You have a huge
It's whatever.
bias.
I try to keep myself as unbiased as possible, but this
Doesn't
Tennessee
work,
team, this organization just always gets so lucky and wins these games that they should never lucky, they win these dumb games.
I don't know
like
if it's
the perfect concept here is the Mariota like pass where he threw it and hit off somebody and he caught it and then ran it into the end zone. That's just the Tennessee Titans organization. They win, and it doesn't make any sense. They don't have Julio. They don't have Derrick Henry. They don't have anybody run on the ball efficiently and effectively. Marcus Johnson got cut from the Colts, catching 100 yards. I still see Marcus Mariota. He probably did run one in off of a pass to himself in this game. This team just wins games that make no sense. That's really it. And it pisses me off.
So as someone who is going to be professional on this show, like I always am, never unprofessional, not my motto.
Of course.
It was a good win for Tennessee. I think it was interesting to see the backfield unfold the way it did. That was what I really took away. I thought it was a good game to watch. I enjoyed watching Tennessee for Saints. I didn't think it was going to end this way, though. I kind of, with Julio out, with obviously Derrick Henry out, I was like, Saints are probably going to steamroll Tennessee by at least 14 right now. And, that's guess what I get for assuming things. I love your face right now. You were frozen for a second, and it was like, I loved it.
Jesus Christ. I'm going to look so bad.
You looked like you look great. You look great. Absolutely beautiful.
I think
I mean, what do you think? What do you make of the Tennessee backfield?
So I do want to get into that.
Mhm.
Deante Foreman, 35% of the snaps,
Right.
11 for 30 yards, 2 catches for 48 yards, had 9.8 fantasy points, and really led the team in everything. AP with 33% of the snaps, 8 carries for 21 yards, 1 catch for -1 yards, 3 fantasy points. And Jeremy McNichols, 15% of the snaps, 4 carries for 7 yards, 1 catch for 1 yard, 1.8 fantasy points. So we talked about this last week, and I said Deante Foreman was the most efficient rusher in that game. And just when he got the ball, he looked like the best guy.
He did.
And I think none of them were great in this one, but it kind of is shaping up to be that he is the best guy back there. I don't know that they're going to lean on him. I think you would hope so, especially with just how Peterson has been efficiency-wise over the last 2 weeks. And
Right.
even with McNichols hasn't stepped up as either of us, I think, would have expected.
Right.
So I think that Deante Foreman is going to be a top waiver pickup this week. We're going to talk about him tomorrow, would be my expectation. But we still need to see him actually get the reins. And we got to see him get more than 11 carries in a game or 13 touches to like be what we hope that he can become.
Right. It was a weird breakdown. I mean, obviously Saints have a really good run defense. They're number 5 against a run. So elite-ish. They're pretty good. So I think like the fact that he was able to get almost double digits against them speaks more volumes to me than it might to other people. I was encouraged by it. He wasn't who I thought was going to take over when Derrick Henry went down, but it's encouraging to see that they have someone who looks like he's trying to emerge as their number one back with, Hall of Fame Adrian Peterson back there also trying to demand touches.
Agreed. And just see somebody pulling away or seemingly looking like the
Right.
best guy. Obviously, for fantasy purposes, that helps a lot.
That does.
One of the
does
weird things in this game, I think the weird thing over the last couple of weeks, A.J. Brown had a couple monster performances, had 27.3 in that infamous Chipotle game. And then he had 31.5 against the Colts. Last 2 weeks has under 10 fantasy points, 1 for 4 in this one, or caught one ball on 4 targets for 16 yards, 3.3 fantasy points. Are you worried about him? Or because I think we both had pretty high expectations for him to be maybe not in the rankings, but a wide receiver 1 rest of the season.
Right. When he had that 3-game stretch of double digits, or he just progressively got higher with 16, 27, and 31, I was all in. I was like, this guy is going to finish as our wide receiver 1 rest of the season. I was encouraged by it. But then to go, I mean, granted, they played the Rams and the Saints, so 2 tougher defenses to play against. Rams not as tough as Saints, obviously, but 2 tougher defenses still without Derrick Henry. I think you can move him. I think I mean, obviously they're playing Houston this upcoming week, so he should hopefully eat then. Like it's Houston. You should. So I might hold on to him for this week, and then let that potential big game against Houston be the point in which I let him go. Because his consistency has just been so inconsistent this year. It's hurting your team more than it's helping so far.
Who would you rather have, A.J. Brown or CeeDee Lamb?
AJ Brown.
AJ Brown or Debo?
Debo, but it's close.
So he's still in the wide receiver 1 mix.
Yeah, I mean he is, but I just want someone. I'd prefer someone who, isn't as inconsistent and still up there. Like someone who on a down game will get me 10 points, but on their up game might only get me like 19 to 20. Like someone who is going to be more consistent than the guy who his average is 13 points right now because of these single digit duds that he just keeps performing. Especially as we're getting into the playoffs, that could win or lose you your week in the playoffs. Like you're playing against the best teams in your respective leagues. And if you have all your trust in AJ Brown and he goes out there and gives you 3.3 points, you're going to lose your week. Like you kind of want guys who have a higher floor this time of year than a guy who potentially could drop 31, but at the same time, he'd also drop you 3 points. Like I think that it all depends on what you're looking for. And I think you can probably find a couple people who are be willing to trade a wide receiver 1-esque for AJ Brown.
I have one last name that I want to throw out there at you. And it's a name we talked about last week. It's a name that we talked about off air last week and had an argument about as well. And I think you could trade AJ Brown and get this person and probably something else. Would you trade AJ Brown for Deante Johnson?
Yes, I
figured you would say that.
I think Deante Johnson. I think
you have a man crush on Deante Johnson. I think that's why the yellow was brought out today.
Yellow was brought out because I have
in honor of Deante Johnson and the tie.
Oh no, I just actually haven't ever worn this shirt on the podcast yet. So I said, New shirt, new me. But I think Deante Johnson just has a higher floor. Like he's the guy who I was kind of thinking of when I said someone who will get you no less than 10, but maybe won't get you a 20 bomb, but he'll get you like a 19. Deante Johnson doesn't have a game below double digits. He's consistent on this Pittsburgh team, which is like the manifestation of inconsistency all around. Inconsistent at quarterback, inconsistent on what Big Ben is going to do on or off the field. It's just tough over there. But I just like Deante Johnson more as someone who's he won't lose you your week in and week out. He might not necessarily like win it. Like if he drops 13 points and you need someone to drop you 25, but he won't lose you your week. And I think in this like playoff sort of area, which is kind of where my mindset's shifting to, he's a guy who I would look to try to trade for.
Would you? Never mind. That I am not asking a question. Yeah, I think I would do. I think I would rather have AJ Brown personally. I would probably. I put him in the same conversation as Debo. I still feel like he can turn it around and put up these massive weeks that, like you said, you are going to have to sacrifice a little bit of the floor for the monster weeks that will win you your week. And I guess that just depends on the risk you want to have on your team and the other players around you. If you have other guys that are pretty risky, might be better to go with a safer 4 guy. But I think the risk versus reward for AJ Brown will be there in the end, personally.
I don't like hate on it. Deante Johnson is right now 12th, tied for 10th in terms of total targets on the year so far. I'll let you guys know tomorrow after obviously the Monday games are over for the Rams and San Francisco, sorry. And because Debo's up there too in terms of, and Robert Woods. But actually, Robert Woods is out. Breaking news over the weekend. Don't know if we talked about it.
We did not, but we will talk about that when we talk about tonight. So that is big news that we will get to. I forgot that we didn't talk about that, so it's a good thing that you brought that up.
You're welcome.
Changes really our whole perspective on what we talked about. Spent like a half hour talking about on Friday's show. But before we get to that, let's get through the rest of these games from yesterday. 16-16 tie and what might be the grossest football game I've ever seen in my life. NFL games can end in ties. I put just in case Najee Harris watches our show. Najee, I might not look the best right now as I'm blurry and frozen, but just want to let you know from the bottom of my heart, I love you. I've never said I love you to almost anybody, so that should be a thing that I want to stress when I talk about Najee Harris as either my okay, never mind. You're back.
I've been here the whole time. You
disconnected, and I thought like I was disconnected again.
It was you. You were kind of frozen on my screen, and you were just talking, and I was like, I can hear you, so I won't interrupt you, and hope like your camera would come back.
But the point is, I love Najee Harris.
You do
he
indeed.
Played in this game, but it was a bad game, and he didn't know that it ended in a tie. So, or NFL games could end in ties. They can. Is kind of the point that I was trying to get across there.
Right.
From the game fantasy wise, like it's hard to really say. I think the big thing that both or most fantasy people's attention was drawn to would be the TJ Hawkinson goose egg and the fact that he only got one look. I don't know if it matters though going forward. Like you're still starting TJ Hawkinson.
Right. I think if you're a Hawkinson owner, I feel like there's definitely a couple players in the league who, if you rostered that person, you're playing them no matter what. Like, no matter how many goose eggs and how many low games they put up, you're still putting them in your lineup. I think Hawkinson's one of those people for a lot of fantasy owners.
Would you rather have Hawkinson or Gesicki?
Gesicki.
Okay. I think I would rather have Hawkinson.
Like it's really close. It's really close.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't blame you either way. So, but that was kind of the comparison that I was drawn to there, and that's as far down as you're going to go. I don't think you're going to trade him for like a Goddard or a Fant, Freiermuth, Dawson Knox, or the other guys. So like that still puts him in the top 7 tight ends, and like there's really only 7 that you're starting, I would say, on a weekly basis. Maybe Goddard and Fant on a weekly basis, but you're not feeling as good about those top 7 guys. That's probably the biggest thing from this game. It's really hard to say what the Pittsburgh stuff meant because Mason Rudolph was in, not Big Ben, and everyone kind of played like their normal game. Obviously, Deante Johnson didn't have his biggest game, but like you said, he had a safe floor game that with a Big Ben in there, maybe anyone other than Mason Rudolph, he probably has a bigger game. So,
I mean, he went 7 for 13. He had a fine day. He just didn't, he hasn't been able to cap it off with a touchdown these last 4 games. I'm not worried about Deante Johnson. Like I said, I would love to trade for Deante Johnson in any league that I'm in. The one question I had is Ray rosterable?
Ray McLeod?
Yeah, Ray.
I think so. There's a couple things here.
They have no other 2 wide receivers. That's just why I'm bringing it up.
That's fair. When people think about fantasy value, they include a lot of things. It's probably a bad idea to go on a rant when my internet connection is so awful, but
keep it short and sweet, just like a birthday cake.
I don't know if you've watched the show, but there's many things you call it. Short and sweet is not one of them.
I love it. Absolutely.
I'm frozen once again.
You are so frozen.
So there's a lot of things people look at when they look at fantasy value. They look at efficiency. They look at touches. They look at name viability. Does he have the big name? But a lot of times they don't look at creativity of their actual name. And I think when factoring that into play, Ray McLeod has to be one of the top wide receivers in fantasy football when you're just looking at not necessarily name value as in like guys that we've known for a while or guys that have been like good for a while, but like when you look at just the creativity of one's name, just like a fun name to have on your team, Ray McLeod is one of the first that comes to my mind. So,
yeah, I mean, Juju.
I hope that answers your question.
Not really. I mean, I think Pittsburgh just enjoys extravagant wide receiver names. Juju, Ray. I think just like any names that you can just say
the repetitiveness
twice. Anything that you can just say twice and it rolls off the tongue. I think that just means you're destined to be a nice wide receiver too, maybe back end. Yeah, he looked good. Wasn't like a great day, but you know,
9 catches on 12 targets.
9 catches, man, is like something you can't ignore. I think for people who were rostering Claypool and Juju, I think you would also roster Ray. Just my opinion. You might hear his name.
I don't know that I'm going as far as rostering him yet because it is the first week that he's had. He had 6.3 in week 3, and besides that, he hasn't had more than 4. Right. But I'd keep an eye out for Ray.
I mean, this is also the first time we've like seen him without Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster in the mix. So that's the only reason. Figured I'd bring it up. He also, got the one person who started him 15 points. So congratulations to them.
Yes, big gotcha day for that person.
Gotcha.
One last thing.
Minnesota.
Last thing we got to talk about. Jamal Williams. I would say drop Jamal Williams. That was the only thing that I had on my list for this game, actually.
Tough.
Minnesota. Big win. As you could probably tell before I switch back. Do you have anything to say to your team or about your team quickly?
Absolutely phenomenal performance out there. Just knit and gritty from start to finish. Couldn't ask for anything better. As a fan, as just a lover of football, Minnesota just encapsulates the perfection of football to the T. Just, everyone wrote them off. They said, hey, Los Angeles, they got big name stars. They got a scary defense. They got a young, hot stud at quarterback over there looking to prove to the world he's more than just a pretty face. You know what Minnesota did? Stomped him right out. Lights out, take the W, go home, eat a cake, eat some cheese. Just a great day for Minnesota lovers all around. Absolute bomb fest. Loved it.
Minnesota carb loading, which I guess you can do after you exert that much exercise. I think it's actually good for your body to kind of bring some of that carbs back in.
You know who excluded, or I don't know the word. He evaporated a lot of calories out there. TJ Hawkinson.
Evaporated? What does TJ Hawkinson have to do with this?
All of his hair is evaporating.
We already talked about TJ Hawkinson.
Yeah, no, I just like his hair.
Okay.
You know who else has great hair, Kondo? Little segue.
This is the most wild transition I've ever experienced in my life. This is Cody trying to be – he did say he was professional in the beginning. I think this is Cody trying too hard to be professional.
Too hard. I gotta stop being
professional. Out a wild transition, just bringing up TJ Hawkinson out of nowhere.
Oh, I was trying –
said Tyler Conklin.
In my mind, the transaction from Detroit to Minnesota.
Okay, now you're saying transaction.
Transition, I said. You froze, dude.
Might have been.
Yeah, but the transition from Detroit to Minnesota would be the tight end with the gray hair on both teams. The tight end number 4 on the week, the tight end who I love so dearly in my heart, Tyler Conklin, dropping a 16-point bomb out there this week. Only need 3 targets. Or
He had 3 catches for
3 catches, 5 targets, sorry.
11 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Absolute stud.
I wrote the question, do you want to, and I don't know if you can, really, and the person that I wrote down, I don't know if it's really selling high at that point, but can you sell high on Tyler Conklin, and do you want to?
So
I don't think you're getting...
Right, you're not going to get a Travis Kelce. You're not going to get
I think it would be Pitts, Gesicki, Hawkinson would be the 3.
I think if you're going off of name value, those would be the 3.
I don't think you're getting any of the top 4.
I don't know if you can, but I don't know if you should sell high on them. I mean, like, I understand my love for, Conklin might be a little bit extra from other people, but he's outperforming, he's outperforming Kittle. He's right behind Darren Waller. He's outperforming not Kyle Pitts. Jeez, I wish he was outperforming Kyle Pitts. He's outperforming like a couple of big name guys, and he's like right around them. Like, I think if you're in a league that didn't care about like the name value, but everyone does, you could probably move him because he is tight end 10, and you could probably move him around a little bit. But I don't think you should. I think Conklin is going to be fine. 2 touchdowns isn't going to happen every week, but 3 out of the last 4 games they've played, he has double digits, and the game he doesn't have double digits, he had 9.5. So
my one trade idea here was Conklin and Jacoby Myers, who weirdly you do have on your team.
I do have both.
Or a TJ Hawkinson.
That'd be an interesting trade.
Would you do that as a Conklin owner?
Probably. Okay. Like, I'd have to look at like everything else on the team, figure out what's going on. But I think blindly saying yes.
Fair enough. I would probably have to do that as well. This is not on the episode title, but this episode is also, in addition to all the things that it's listed as our official Mike Williams morning episode.
God damn it.
So
it's been a morning episode for Mike Williams for probably the past
like 3 weeks.
Maybe 4, maybe like 6 or 7 for me. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm glad you're glad.
4 catches, 33 yards, 6 targets, 7 something. So I don't know if it's him, honestly. I don't think it is him. I think it's this offense has not fallen off a cliff, but there's a noticeable difference in how good they were at the start of the year and how they are now. And I'm not sure with how they're playing now, they're good enough to support all of the weapons that they have to their full fantasy potential.
I mean, obviously Austin Eckler is a solid running back. He's going to be on everyone's roster. Should be rostered 99% of leagues. Keenan Allen should be rostered 99% of leagues. Just he is their number one guy. Even the weeks that Mike Williams outperformed him fantasy-wise, real football-wise, Mike Williams had the better. Like, he had more targets in all them games, or I think all but like one of those games. I guess week 2 was a Mike Williams day for sure. But I think if Herbert can get a little bit more comfortable back there, then maybe Mike Williams will have a chance to be a viable fantasy option. But you're right. Like as of right now, like it's the Keenan Allen show and the Austin Eckler show, and everyone else can just like hit the waiver wire. I mean, I've kind of been saying this for Mike Williams for a while now. Don't regret saying it, even I think in like week 3. But you can
It's a pretty easy week to not, or episode to not regret it, seeing as it is the morning episode.
Right. But yeah, just put them on waiver wire. Just drop them.
How about that?
Yeah, not going to get anything for him anyway.
I don't know about that now. What do you say to the 0.2% of leagues that don't roster Austin Eckler? He's not rostered 99.9% of leagues. He's actually rostered 99.8% of leagues. So that 1%. Do you have anything to say to them?
No, they're just dead to me, is what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going to Carolina. Interesting game. Cam is back. If you had not already heard, he had 2 touchdowns in this game.
He did.
There's a couple big things to say here, but since I'm already on the topic of Cam, next 2 games are Washington and Miami. Both defenses played better the last week or 2.
Right.
But not known for being the best, actually known for being 2 of the worst in the NFL so far this season. Cam expected to probably get the reins as the starting quarterback next week. We see his running potential, and we see that they're going to use him at the goal line. And we see that they're not afraid to let him run the ball. That running production, we know what that does for at least your floor, and I would say your upside as well, in fantasy football. Would you be taking a chance on Cam as your quarterback? If you're streaming quarterbacks, or even if you're like, let's add this guy to my bench as a second quarterback just to see if he has value and maybe flip him.
I don't know I think I might, but I don't love it. I'm not going to start Cam Newton as my quarterback if I'm streaming. But yeah, I like the idea of getting him, letting him have a good week, flipping him right at the trade deadline, getting a nice piece for the playoff push. He's just, it's tough because it's Cam Newton. So like you want your quarterback to kind of be a set it and forget it guy, like a guy who is like, if he's in your lineup, you don't have to worry that he's going to get you under 10 points. Like you want a guy who's like double digits up to like 25, like something like that, like someone who has the range to do that. Cam Newton has like the potential to get you double digits, and he has potential to score 30 fantasy points by himself just because he is a huge human being and can run and loves to take off and run. But I don't know, like he's going to have games like we saw last year where he just puts up duds as far as fantasy numbers wise. And I just feel like at quarterback, you can get a better option, but I like your idea of flipping him.
Yeah. Did you say like last game or last year?
Last year.
Okay. Yes.
In New England.
Yes. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. One of the things that I said earlier last week is that I liked it as far as the pass catchers go, just as far as hope. I wasn't sure that it was going to be better. It did not get better this week for DJ Moore, albeit Cam did not play or was not like the primary quarterback in this game. More paying over DJ Moore or Mike Williams?
I like DJ Moore. I think he gets it figured out. And obviously, there's less, like CMC is going to eat all day at CMC, just like he did this game. But besides that, they don't have an elite pass catcher out there like they do in Keenan Allen.
Robbie Anderson's back, though.
I mean, you can say that. He is definitely back. I believe everyone has a back, maybe even a front if you're lucky. I like
But what
DJ
about
Moore.
Robbie Anderson's back? I think it stands
I
out,
haven't seen
particularly
it.
this week.
I mean, I haven't seen it. Yeah, I mean, hey, he has 3 weeks above double digits. He got a touchdown, 6 targets this game. It's helpful, and it's nice to see, especially since you drafted Robbie Anderson in the 4th round. It's always nice to see that. But I want to see some more weeks of productivity from him before I like jump on the boat. Interesting thing I saw, Kondo. Don't know if you saw this.
Okay.
PJ Walker, undefeated as a starter in the XFL and the NFL. 5-0 in the XFL. 2-0.
We got to get a petition for that too. I started the petition for Colt McCoy as the starter. Obviously, this loss is not Colt McCoy's fault. He's playing through a pec strain. You guys ever straightened your pec before? I didn't think so. Can't relate to how that feels. I imagine that's just as bad as 2 ACLs. So
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this loss goes on everybody besides Colt McCoy from the Arizona side of things. Last quick thing, I think Zach Ertz is a little underrated. He might be. I mean, he hasn't had Kyler for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I think he might be like a guy that nobody really wants at tight end. They like roster, and you might be able to just trade nothing for them. If you're looking for tight end, I think he could be a guy that is a interesting buy low option. Although I'm not sure the upside is going to be anything like spectacular, but I think he's someone who I just don't think is getting enough love right now.
I mean, he's an interesting guy, for sure. I think if you're going to take a shot at a guy who you can pick up off waivers, the guy who I'm going to like continue to back is going to be Conklin, just because, like, yeah, he's a Viking. Have all the love in the world for my Vikings, but like he put up a number 1 tight end fantasy week this year. He is currently number 10 on the year. He's put up some nice numbers. He's on a good offense where the pressure is not on him to be elite. And in 4 of the last 5 weeks that he's played, he put up double digits. The 1 week he didn't, put up 9.5. Like, he is on a roll right now to just continue to give you close to double digits week in, week out. I don't think Ertz is there yet. We got to see him with Kyler. We have to see him with D-Hop, with AJ, with Kirk, Moore, Connor, and then, Edmonds later.
Might as well just list out the whole offensive line too.
No, I mean, just people who are going to catch the ball for him.
But I mean, I agree. I was not saying Ertz over Conklin.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that he could be an interesting one that, I mean, hopefully people catch on to your Conklin take after this week. But
I've been beating the Conklin drum, I think, since like
I think we have over 5 minutes of Conklin content in this episode, which is,
I hope so. That's actually
dangerously high.
I actually skipped over a bunch. I just really wanted to talk about him today.
Did you have more
from the Arizona? I just said James Conner, great guy to start.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I just want to give him credit. I feel like we just bash him a little bit on the show. I feel like we give him some love.
Bash him?
Yeah,
we talked about him last week.
No.
But I feel like if we're not talking about you, it's typically you're doing something right. Like, we don't talk about guys that have monster weeks because, like, what else do you have to say? Besides,
I like to bring him up, like the guy right here, D. Smith, my man, guy I've been backing all year. Absolutely huge performance. 2 touchdowns, 4 for 6, 66 yards. Touchdown saved them, but that's neither here nor there against just an elite Denver defense. Love to see D. Smith out there putting in work.
Yeah, big game for him. I'm not sure what that means for him going forward. Like, I still think I guess I would have to look a little bit more at rest of season rankings, but I don't think he's a top 24 guy for me anyway. I don't think I would put him in that mix. Like, some guys that he would have to overcome to get into that place. I think like the more questionable side would be a Pittman, Cooks, Waddle. I think even when Antonio Brown comes back, he's a guy that I would rather have. A Renfro, just because, again, like for me, it's the volume there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for wide receiver, there's so many wide receivers that to fit people into the 24 is tough just because so D Smith is currently averaging 12.6 fantasy points a week. Like there's people around him who are averaging that. I mean, I think 12.6 points from your second wide receiver who has a chance to boom for 20 plus is a great option to have, you know?
I mean, I think you're obviously pumped about it if you have Deante Smith. I just think, there's
Excuse me.
some better options out there that
Right.
like don't scare me as much. So, I mean, we talked about Amari Cooper target volume. I think Devontae Smith's target volume is better, but he has 6 receptions in 3 games this year. He has 7 targets in about half of his games this year, which isn't awful. So maybe not as low as I am. I just think that there's some better, like more consistent options, and everyone knows my distrust in this Philadelphia Eagles organization when it comes to fantasy football and them just intentionally trying to ruin the sport for all of us.
I'm not going to say that, but I mean, in defense,
you don't have to. I said it for both of us.
You only said it for you, not my opinion.
Well, this is our show, so technically.
No. Defending D. Smith here, though. D. Smith is only 6 fantasy points behind Amari Cooper on the year. That's a touchdown. So if Amari Cooper is a wide receiver too, D. Smith has to be a wide receiver too.
I think Amari Cooper might be. For me, I would rather have Devontae Smith than Amari Cooper. But I also don't like Devontae. Or don't like Amari Cooper.
Now, what about Deante Johnson? Wide receiver 1, 2, where you put him?
I think Deante Johnson the rest of the way is a wide receiver 2.
Deante Johnson has 132 points. D. Smith has 126. So again,
that's so far. You asked me about
Russell. Right. I'm just saying, like he's averaging around this, like these wide receivers, whereas like he might not be considered a wide receiver 2 at the end of the season, but like his point total is going to be that similar-esque sort of number-wise as an Amari Cooper, potential Deante Johnson, Brandon Cooks.
Deante Johnson also missed 2 weeks.
Right. I'm not sure how many weeks D. Smith missed.
He's played every week so far this year. That's
what a stud for health right there. That's all I need. That's all I'm hearing. Stud for health.
I mean, one of Deante Johnson's was a bye week, so it's coming up for the Eagles.
Yeah. All I'm saying is it could potentially be here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's the number 1 wide receiver on his team. Now, again, the team that is trying to ruin fantasy football with how they mix and match their running backs around whoever the fantasy community suggests, maybe particularly us.
Didn't you say Scott? I thought you said Scott. You looked completely stoned.
No, this week I said Howard.
Oh, well, I mean, Howard,
who played unreal. He had 12 carries for 83 yards.
Apparently, but sadly, that was all he got, though, was the 8.3 points that game was. So.
Because of course he did. That just goes to prove my point right there. I don't really have anything for Denver.
Denver, I had more of a question. I just said, what the hell happened out there? That's all I could think of. Like, I mean, this game was Atlanta-esque in terms of fantasy production. I mean, their highest scorer was Jerry Jeudy of 11, Noah Fant got 10. Okinawa's Luigi got 10.7. So like, but
I don't think that was.
I
I
have no idea
don't
how
think
to
there's
say
an
it.
L in there.
I have no idea how to say this man's name.
Alberto.
Alberto. But yeah, like Gordon, Bridgewater, Williams, Sutton, Patrick. I mean, it wasn't like a great day for anyone. I mean, I guess if you're Noah Fant owner, 10 points is always solid for not the biggest name tight end. So that's always good to hear. But I think it was a disappointment as far as everyone else goes.
I think that's just what Denver, unfortunately, like is. Like you don't know what they're gonna do. You don't know what Denver team's gonna show up, and you know they have so many people there that should be scoring more fantasy points than they do.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the story every week is like we don't really we'll get like one guy that catches a touchdown. No Fant had a 20-point week earlier on, where we're like, oh, this is awesome. Like Noah Fant coming into his own, and then just nothing. Like it's just like that for a lot of guys there, unfortunately. And I don't know that the consistency is going to be there for any of them to be too valuable. Obviously, Fant with just playing tight end gives him value. The scarcity at running back gives Melvin Gordon and Javonte kind of that back end RB2 value. And I would say Jared Jeudy is really the only startable receiver you feel has upside in Denver.
Yeah, live you there.
Going on to another disappointing day for, I think, both offenses would be actually there's a game that we got to talk about first.
We have two. We missed. Did we do Jacksonville?
Yes.
We did.
Did we, or did we skip it?
No, we skipped your team. I was wondering because I was going through and
I wanted to get to the Steelers because we were talking about the Steelers.
Oh, that makes sense, I guess. Maybe.
So Jacksonville, Indy, celebratory win. It's not really much to celebrate about. We were up 17-0. We almost lost to the Jags. I think when that happens, you can probably just give up on the year. A fairly like disappointing thing for Carson Wentz to potentially miss his kid over is scraping by a win over the Jags. But we did so. And I don't know that he missed his kid being born. That I don't know if we have knowledge of that happening.
Honestly, just like his wife carrying that kid around, Jonathan Taylor carried this team around. So I think it's just Carson.
He did, but then he also did. Like Jacksonville shut down the run after the first quarter. He had 90 yards in the first quarter, and after that only got around 30 yards for the rest of the game. But Jonathan Taylor did go off. I mean, still just continuing to be the RB1 since Derrick Henry went down, and obviously with Christian McCaffrey being out for a while as well. I do want to talk about that because we explained in a segment we call Explain Your Trade. I was planning originally when I traded for Jonathan Taylor 3 weeks ago, I believe.
Had to be. That was a long time ago.
It was planning on
like 4 weeks ago, yeah.
Trading Jonathan Taylor after he went off these last 2 weeks. Now, he has a really tough stretch. He has Buffalo, Tampa Bay, probably two of the toughest run defenses you can play. And then he plays Houston and has a bye before the playoffs for the rest of the regular season. He has New England, Arizona, and Las Vegas in the playoffs. Nothing like too major. Those teams are kind of all in the middle of the pack as far as running backs, fantasy points allowed to the running back. Would you consider my thought of trading high on Jonathan Taylor, or would you, like me, revert back into the shell of being, to put it nicely, a scaredy cat and not trade Jonathan Taylor because he's had the good weeks that we expected him to have against bad opponents?
I guess it depends on who you're going to get in return. Jonathan Taylor is making an argument for being a running back one or the running back one.
Yeah.
The running back one. I mean, all things are kind of playing in his favor right now. You know, Pittman being good is about as high of praise as I can give him. Like, if we're going to talk about elite wide receivers, he's not one of them. So it's kind of helpful that Jonathan Taylor's on a team in which he gets he can get a lot of targets without affecting other people negatively. I think he has a good shot to finish as running back one on the year, and I think you should be compensated. If you're going to trade him, you have to compensate yourself with that in mind. Like, CMC is going to put up some great weeks. Dalvin Cook, Kamara, if he ever gets healthy, Elliott, like those guys are going to put up good weeks when healthy. But Jonathan Taylor is like just performing all year mainly. Some low weeks, obviously, but like nothing crazy. Yeah, compensate yourself fairly.
I think the only person you trade him for is Dalvin. And I'd say it's just because Dalvin has Madison and you have that handcuff. So maybe not even just Dalvin, but Dalvin and Madison, if you could do that. But
I would do it straight up for Dalvin. I wouldn't need Madison, but I would like a bench wide receiver, because I think
I don't know that I would even do it for McCaffrey. Like, if you look at McCaffrey's schedule in the playoffs, and I'll get to it, but his schedule in the playoffs is Buffalo, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. You literally can't get three tougher defenses unless he played himself. So it's
I guess I'm with you there.
As hard as it gets, and it is Christian McCaffrey, who I think is one of the only running backs right now that is definitely matchup proof. But why would you make a lateral move for Christian McCaffrey when you're going to have to pay for Christian McCaffrey? Like, you're going to have to pay for more than it just being a lateral move when it could be a lateral move. I am not really looking to trade one of those top guys for McCaffrey just because of that playoff schedule, if that's what you're looking towards, which you probably are. That being said, I'm not panicking on McCaffrey either. So I'm leaning towards keeping Jonathan Taylor, and I think a lot of people should, unless you can get, I would just say Dalvin. Like, really, I don't think there's anyone else that I would consider trading Jonathan Taylor for at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Dalvin's playing Chicago week 15, Rams 16, and Green Bay 17. Chicago in the back end in terms of fantasy points running back. I don't know. Like, I'm with you. Dalvin or JT would be my two guys rest of the way.
Interesting. We might have to draft tomorrow. Maybe draft our playoff dream teams.
Okay.
Could be an interesting one, depending on our time.
We also forgot. Oh, are you doing Cleveland right now?
We're doing that one right now.
Perfect.
Cleveland at New England. Just blowout. Not too much to talk. Well, I guess there is. New England, I think, is winning that division. They're gonna do it, and it's gonna take everyone off. I understand. I feel your pain. I'm just trying to prepare you so it's not as shocking when it happens. As far as fantasy goes, I'm going to ask, there's three guys who really had huge days, and I want to ask which one matters the most. So, Ramondre Stevenson, 27.4 fantasy points, 20 carries for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, 4 catches for 14 yards. Kendrick Bourne, 4 catches for 98 yards and a touchdown, wild touchdown, by the way. He also had 3 carries for 43 yards, so 24.1 fantasy points for him. And then Hunter Henry, 4 catches for 37 yards and 2 touchdowns. He has been a touchdown monster so far this year. 19.7 fantasy points for him. Which of these guys' days are you most intrigued with?
I think Stevenson.
Son.
Yeah, Stevenson. He looked really good. A lot better than I thought he was going to against the Cleveland defense, who has been good so far this year. It was a weird game to watch. Definitely not what I thought was going to happen. But I think Stevenson's the guy who I'm most intrigued by. Hunter Henry has 7 touchdowns in the past 7 weeks. Do I think he has a chance to score every week? Everyone does if you play in the NFL, even linemen. So yes, he has a chance to score. I don't love his chances just because, you're in Bill Belichick's offense. You're in his scheme. Gronk was super successful there. He had Brady. I don't think Mac Jones and Hunter Henry are the next Brady-Gronk combo. They potentially could be. Who knows, 3 years from now, if they win a championship or 2 or 3 together, then I'll eat my words. But I'm not buying in on Hunter Henry yet. I think he's ranked number 4 for tight end. I think he definitely dropped without, the insane fluctuation of touchdowns.
I put Henry as my most intrigued by guy here because those touchdowns, I think, are coming at a rate that I don't think is coincidence. I think they are looking at him in the end zone. And while that volume is not there, and I don't think Hunter Henry is a guy, I don't know if he's a guy that I'm going to pick up and keep week in and week out, but I think he is the perfect streaming tight end. And with Stevenson, I like him. It was a huge day. I just don't think he'll get this much work when Damian Harris comes back. And I do think that Damian Harris is a pretty big injury risk just with what we've seen so far this year. So there is an opportunity for Ramondre Stevenson. It's just kind of like we already talked about him, and we already knew that if he got the role, he was going to be pretty good. So I'm happy that he was good and that was correct. But I also just think Hunter Henry it got to a point where it's like, okay, they're looking for him in the end zone.
He has 11 targets in the red zone, delivered on 7 of them so far this year. He is a good chance to score down there. I guess it just depends on how much trust you have that he needs a touchdown to get you his week. He's not going to get you monster volume.
But we saw that work last year with Robert Tonyan, and I think that's what you're hoping for. It's not a guy that you're feeling great about, but it's a guy who might be able to get you through.
He has he's got 5 weeks of over 10 points, 5 weeks under 10 points this year. He is legitimately 50-50. Even against Carolina, he got you a touchdown and still got you underneath 10 points. So, I like the chances. There's definitely worse options. Hunter Henry should be rostered in almost every league because I think you can always use a guy like this. But to have him be my guy who I'm trusting and most encouraged by, it's not him. It's Stevenson.
Hawkinson has 4 weeks over 10. Gesicki has 4 weeks over 10. There's some guys that I think 10 is a lot for a tight end. So I'm taking that particularly and that might make him more of an ad than I previously thought. I thought he was just a good streaming option, and it was newer information. Previously I was kind of blowing off the Hunter Henry thing, but now I think where this isn't as big of a shift for me on Ramondre Stevenson because I thought he was going to be good.
Mhm.
It's more of a shift because I'm like, okay, this touchdown production is going to keep up. It's not just a coincidental thing. As
Yeah, I
far
mean,
as
yeah.
Cleveland goes,
Cleveland looked terrible.
I do want to talk about Juice. There wasn't much production in Cleveland outside of Ernest Johnson, but Juice, 4.1 and 6.6 in 2 games without OBJ, 5 targets in both of those games. You're probably trying to get away from this Cleveland receiving core in general, but maybe my bold prediction here is I'd rather have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who just had a very bad week. He had 1 catch for 12 yards, I'll say.
16.
1 catch for 16 yards. But he did get 5 targets, which has been pretty good for him in comparison to where it's been at. Usually, I would rather have him just because he is a deep threat, so he's going to get more yards per catch typically.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean that I'm trading Jarvis for Donovan Peoples-Jones because I think the name value of Jarvis can get you something better than Donovan Peoples-Jones. And I think that's, again, one of the reasons why I would do it is because I think that Jarvis has some name value and you could clear that spot, pick up somebody who might have some more potential, a guy that's hurt right now, Sterling Shepard, possibly. Or even like Kadarius Toney, one of those guys from the Giants, and probably still pick up Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is rostered in 20% of leagues.
Potentially, you might be able to pick up DPJ. I'm not loving my takeaway of the game was
You're
not.
the anti-McDonald's when it comes to Cleveland Browns wide receivers.
I don't know what that means. Maybe, yeah, I guess. Definitely not loving them.
Someone will
I
get
said
that.
I wouldn't roster anyone besides a running back from Cleveland. Oh Jesus,
Oh my God, this train's coming through.
God, help me with that train, please and thank you. Yeah, I don't want anyone but a running back from Cleveland on my
Yeah.
team. DPJ could potentially have big weeks coming up. Jarvis missed 4 weeks, but in the 6 games that he played, he only has 2 above double digits. I'm not loving Jarvis.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an offense that likes to throw, especially with Baker now banged up. It's Case Keenum. You got to back up. Case Keenum's kind of old, so maybe shorter passes are going to be a more reliable thing for him. So maybe Jarvis gets some more looks, depending
We'll
on
see if Baker plays too. They say it's only a contusion. So we'll
Baker
see
is, yeah.
about that
Sorry.
going forward.
Yeah.
Seattle at Green Bay. We have to hurry through these ones because we are going long today.
Good.
Better days ahead for Seattle. Not the backfield, though. So try to get out of that if you can. That's kind of that. I think the big news everyone's going to be talking about is the Aaron Jones injury. We thought that it was going to be a little bit worse than it was. Luckily, it is a mild MCL sprain. Only expected to miss 1 to 2 weeks against Minnesota and the Rams. Neither great against the run. But this obviously creates the opportunity for A.J. Dillon. And as we mentioned, we are 4 weeks out from the playoffs in most fantasy leagues. And I think that's why this is such a big deal. Whether you have Aaron Jones, whether you are needing a running back, whether you have A.J. Dillon and don't need a running back, I think this creates a really weird situation, but a really opportune situation for a lot of fantasy like runs if you're trying to make a late season run. So we did talk about they have Minnesota, Los Angeles, and then they have the bye. So you would be getting AJ Dillon. I think both of us are pretty surprised on we're neither of us doctors, but pretty surprised that it's only a 1 to 2 week thing. Still, AJ Dillon is going to be probably a back end running back one, especially with the passing volume that we see him getting. So there's going to be a big market for AJ Dillon, especially down the stretch when we're in a situation with some teams where you have to go 3-1 to make the playoffs right now. You have to win and you have to think about next week rather than the long term. And there's also some teams that have to think about the long term rather than just next week. So that creates a super buying opportunity for AJ Dillon if you're one of those teams that needs to win next week, and a super selling opportunity if you're sitting pretty and have a chance to get rid of AJ Dillon and are looking at like, don't want to talk personal experience or anything, but like 8-2 and have AJ Dillon and don't plan on starting him for the next 2 weeks or don't need to start him for the next 2 weeks, and still are in the playoffs and can get a guy that can help you there. So I think it's really dependent on your roster of whether you want AJ Dillon or whether you want to trade AJ Dillon, whether you want Aaron Jones or want to trade Aaron Jones. And I think that's one of the things that I'm not sure how much we can talk about because it's so situational and you really would have to know like what's going on in the league and who's running back needy, what's your situation.
I know
Be
every
able to
league kind of,
determine it.
so I'll take it real quick. I know every league, I know every owner,
Okay.
every manager personally, so I got it.
Perfect. But like this is the thing that obviously you hate to see an injury, but the thought and the strategy that I love about fantasy football, like these decisions that are going to be huge for like deciding a league.
Right. I think AJ Dillon proved he deserves his name in the conversation for one of the most valuable handcuffs in the league. Put up a nice game, obviously, when Jones went out. They're going to be playing the Rams in Minnesota, both about middle of the road in terms of points of the running back, 14 and 16, I believe, for the two teams respectively. So he is in for 2 good weeks, and then the bye week, and then obviously Jones comes back potentially. I'm with you. Figure out your league. Figure out who has AJ Dillon. Figure out who needs AJ Dillon if you have AJ Dillon, and play your game. See what you can try to finagle for. Obviously, AJ Dillon is going to be borderline RB1 for these next 2 weeks.
He's definitely going to be ranked as an RB1 going into the week. So like there's
He's going to be ranked
real
there.
value there.
Yeah. It's going to be nice for him.
And his value is not going to get any higher than it is right now. So I say if you don't need him,
right,
you try to move him. Kind of like unfortunately we did miss the weekend, but we'll talk about the the Rams soon, but kind of like Odell, I would say.
right.
Kansas City at Vegas. Chiefs are back. Is that an overreaction?
Underreaction.
It is?
Underreaction, maybe.
Oh. So I
think when you have a guy from each position almost gets you 20 points plus. I mean, Patty got you 36. D. Williams got you 29. Hill got you 27. Travis Kelce was 0.1 points away with 19.9. Kicker got you 11. Defense got you 9. You could have started this entire team and been fine. Like, I think at each position, that would have been one of the best, if not the best, at every position this week. Like, you could have started them and a fine person. Hill got beat out by Stephon Diggs, but it's hard not to. Stephon Diggs, long lost Viking, gets a little lost from home right now in Buffalo, but he'll make his way back. But yeah, Chiefs turned it around. For all the people who said maybe I should just trade Patty away for 55-year-old Tom Brady, maybe hold off another week, one more week. I think it was a great day for the entire Chiefs team, both watching the game for fans, for real football, and also for fantasy.
Yeah, I'm obviously feeling better about the Chiefs. I'm not sure they're back yet. They beat the Raiders.
Raiders were tough in all the categories though. They were, 8th against a quarterback, 21st against a running back, 3rd against a wide receiver, and 30th against a tight end. So quarterback and wide receiver, and to put up this monster numbers for a team that has been struggling, I think was super encouraging. That's why
I think it's encouraging.
It means more to me than if they beat the Jets or something.
They beat the Raiders, who, they did lose to the Giants. I don't know, and obviously have a lot going on. I feel good about it, obviously, and I don't think I'm trading anybody, so I don't think our outlooks after this game are all too different. But I would like to see it a little bit more. I would like to just see it keep up. And it's crazy that they're in first place in their division right now. Also, it's wild.
Yeah, it's tough. What do you do with Darren Waller? Question.
Hold on. I'm fine.
Okay.
Not panicked on him yet. We did see some panic in that game with D-Jack just doing whatever he did on that play. But yeah, I'm fine with him. Bryan Edwards had a good game for you.
He did. It was a weird one, but it was a good day for him. Obviously, Chiefs let up an exorbitant amount of passing yards. So it was nice to see. I kind of figured Renfro would have a good day. I didn't see Edwards outperforming him, even if it was just by 0.2, but still nice to see Edwards have a little bit of a revival.
It'll be interesting to see if he is on our waiver show tomorrow. We'll tease. Getting into, finally, the game tonight. We talked about this.
Maybe.
Said we were going to move our talk about the Monday Night Football game to Friday.
We
and
did.
then recap it a little bit on Mondays. We did not expect everything to kind of change. We recorded our Friday show before the Robbie Woods news was out. Robbie Woods tearing his ACL is out for the season. Makes a little bit more sense why Odell was brought in now. Would we like to revise how we think Odell factors into this offense now?
I said Odell would be a wide receiver 2, and you said he would not. So I am still in the wide receiver 2 camp.
You said back end wide receiver 2, and I said he would be in the wide receiver 3 category. So
obviously, I loved him way more than you did to demote him all the way to wide receiver 3 with the likes of, I don't even know who would be wide receiver 3, but people along the lines of Collins, Sharp, Zach Pascal, Osborne, all these people that just Condo hates.
There's no way that those guys are wide receiver 3s.
Anyway, I think he moves up to. Hey, chill. Goddamn! Hold on, not you. You. Sorry, dog going crazy. I think he moves up from back end to wide receiver 15 on the year. Odell has a lot of talent. He just doesn't know the system. And I think talent can make up for a lot of things, especially when you have OBJ's level of talent, where he makes professional athletes look like they've never played football before. And I'm even more encouraged now because I was already high on him with him being the third guy back there, and Cooper Kupp potentially going for the record this year. But I think he, as far as the wide receiver 2, I think he is probably the best if you look around the league. I don't know if you could think of another team's wide receiver 2 who would be outshining OBJ. And I think his productivity is going to be nice. I mean, if you can think of one,
I would say both of the Tampa Bay secondary receivers.
So you're saying who's number 1? Evans? Because Evans would be the number 1.
I would say Evans is the number 1, and I'd say Godwin and NAB are better.
I'm talking real football, not fantasy, like real football. Do you think Goodwin and Brown are both better than OBJ? Interesting take.
They have been in the last 3 years. I think that's like, I think you're more of the prediction person than I am. Like I try to go, I don't trust myself enough to go on that limb.
I trust myself and I'm right a lot of the time. So I'm going to predict it again.
Okay, Mr. Ego there.
Watch
yourself. I think you're calling out yourself for a monster fall when you say I'm right all the time.
I hope so, because I predicted Colts to the championship. So obviously.
Okay. Well, now I kind of hope you're right all the time. But yeah, I mean, I like Odell. Like you heard me talking up Odell while he was in Cleveland, like saying this guy's getting open. So it's not that I don't like Odell. It's just
he now lost a wide receiver at his position. I
don't think that he is the unreal guy I think he has to prove that he's the unreal guy we saw with the Giants.
I think he's the unreal guy that we saw in Cleveland, where there's literally there's the 20-minute clip of him wide open, Baker just not giving him the ball. I don't think Stafford makes that mistake, especially in the Sean McVay offense, and having that head coach with just a driven guy with Stafford, with another piece of Cooper Kupp to free him up, with Henderson being able to run the ball so they have a little bit of a run game to fall back on too. I just think I was high on him, even with Robert Woods there. And now, sorry, Robert Woods, hope you have a speedy recovery, come back next year, kick ass. But like OBJ now lost his second biggest hurdle besides not knowing the playbook. And I think OBJ is just poised for a great rest of the season. I think he's going to be fun to watch, to say the least.
I think he's a wide receiver too. I would say it's hard to not say that he's going to be a wide receiver too at this point. I think that Van Jefferson is going to factor in a lot here. I don't think that it's going to be like the clear. I think OBJ will probably have more big games than Van Jefferson, but I think there's going to be some days where it's Van Jefferson as the top guy outside, and then some days where it's Odell as the top guy outside. I don't think the separation between those two is going to be too crazy at the end of the season. So that would probably be how I feel about that.
I mean, on Friday, you said he would take the Van Jefferson target share, which would be 5 to 6. Now with Robert Woods out, who is getting close to double digits, now you're saying that those targets completely dissipate and that they're both going to get 6 targets now? Like, I guess I'm confused on your target breakdown here. Because on Friday, you said Robert Woods, gets his double digits. Cooper Kupp gets his insane double digits.
Yeah,
and Van Jefferson's getting 5 or 6. And now you're saying that they're going to share the 5 or 6.
I don't know if that added up, but I can explain.
I'll wait.
So I think if you're going to pay Odell to come in and you have 3 wide receivers, I think it's clear that you are expecting him to take the role of the 3rd wide receiver, or else why would you pay him to be your 4th wide receiver? Makes no sense. So in that situation, I saw him taking Van Jefferson's role because I didn't think they were going to bring him in to be a 4th wide receiver. And I didn't think they were paying him to come in and take Robbie Woods' role or Cooper Kupp's role. So I saw him taking Van Jefferson's role because what was the other logical conclusion there?
Mhm.
Now that I know why they did it, I think it makes me look a little bit more at how Van Jefferson's performed this year and how Odell has performed and say, okay, I don't know. And also taking into account the scheme that Van Jefferson has been here for a couple of years, that Odell is getting used to it. And it's not like going to have the whole season to get used to it. He's going to be learning as he goes here. I feel like it's going to be a lot closer, and I feel like those guys are going to be on the field at the same time a lot as well. And I do think that Odell is more talented than Van Jefferson. I think defenses know that as well. So I could see Van Jefferson having games where he is getting 7 to 8 targets and Odell is getting 5 or 6. But more times than not, I think it's going to be seven, around 7 for Odell and around 5 for Van Jefferson, 6 for Van Jefferson. I think it's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be Odell with 10 and Van Jefferson with 3 on a regular basis. That could happen, but I just don't think there's going to be too big of a split. I think Odell is in that mid to low wide receiver 2 tier, and Van Jefferson is in the wide receiver 3 tier for me.
I just think that having watched the Browns this year drastically underutilize not just OBJ, but most of their wide receivers, if not every pass catcher out there, makes it and they've been doing it for a while, not just this year. It's not just this year that's all crazy. They've been doing it for a while. So obviously we haven't been able to see OBJ in a pass-happy offense in a while, especially with a quarterback who likes to sling the ball around and can sling the ball around with accuracy and likes to feed it. I just think he's poised for a better year than I think you're saying, and I think he doesn't poise – I don't put him and Van Jefferson in the same category. And I don't think saying they're going to have the same amount of targets. It's not kind of a –
Didn't.
Well, you said similar. You said there's going to be some
I think it's
games
going to be similar. I don't think it's going to be the same.
I don't see it. I see OBJ as just watching him play is it's awesome. It's awesome's the only word that comes to mind. His route running, his footwork, his ability to get open. And now we're going to see him actually try to catch the ball. When the balls were might have been a little high, he was I ain't going to take this hit. It's middle linebacker. Baker can't throw the ball to me anyway. I'm not going to take this hit right now. I think we see him make a little bit more of those effort plays, especially in the Rams, who are poised to make it at least to the playoffs. Deep playoff push is what I'm expecting from the Rams now. I just see him having a great rest of the season, both real football and for fantasy.
All right.
Funk. That is a fun name.
Jake Funk, fun name. He also goes in that Ray McLeod category, depending on what you think of name value in fantasy football. I do want to say quickly, I do think that you said that this was going to affect Cooper Kupp more when Robbie Woods was healthy. I think this actually affects Cooper Kupp more because I think that there is going to be more of a focus on Cooper Kupp now until Odell proves himself.
I mean, I think we might be overhyping the fact that learning a playbook is hard. I mean, it's OBJ.
Well, I'm just saying proves himself to defenses.
Well, right, but I think if you watch him play and seeing him that wide open when he was the number one on the Cleveland Browns, he was healthy, he was the number one guy, and he would still get open despite being number one guy. So I think now it does hurt Cooper Kupp a little bit, but I don't think it hurts him that much.
So how do you think it hurts him then?
Maybe one less target a game. Maybe.
But why?
OBJ just taking some.
So you think OBJ is going to be a bigger
I don't think he's going to be
than Robert Woods?
I think the fact that you now lost Robert Woods and gained OBJ, I think OBJ demands more of a target share than Robert Woods does. I think OBJ has more talent than Robert Woods does. I think Cooper Kupp's still going to eat because Cooper Kupp's on a tear this year. But OBJ, like, I guess if you don't watch the games and like
I watched the games.
But, like,
I was beating the drum for OBJ. I think as
well,
early
like,
as
then
any.
you should know just how wide open he is. Like, he's
He can
literally
get
wide
open, but if he doesn't
But
want to
he's
catch the ball, then he has to prove himself that he can catch the ball.
I don't think it's the fact that he didn't want to catch it. It's the fact that, like, he was open being the number one. Now you're letting him be the number two in an offense with a better quarterback and with a number one guy in their own. Like,
I think, and also I want to say, I think the fact that, like, even if he is open now, all time might be a stretch, but I think he does get open a lot. Baker couldn't put it on the spot.
not every time, but he's open like 85% of the time. He's open.
That's just a made up number.
Nah, I predict like
but like he has to prove it at some point. Like if it's not happening, he just he has to prove it. And that's where my opinion is pretty malleable. Like if I could see it and you can show me, I think that's where like the prediction thing comes in, where I'm a little bit more risk averse on prediction. I tend to go more off of like the past, and recent past for Odell hasn't been great. So
recent past also was a shitty quarterback.
Has been in Cleveland. I don't think Baker's a shitty quarterback, but
shitty chemistry, Rise. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
like, there's zero chemistry there. That's what like if the quarterback doesn't want to throw the wide receiver is going to look like garbage. If the wide receiver doesn't want to catch for the quarterback, both are going to look like garbage.
Well, I think that's a problem. If your receiver doesn't want to catch for your quarterback, like then something that's probably not a great look for the wide receiver.
He's been saying this since 2019. I gave you the article. Like I told you. Like
I think that's a problem.
It's been a problem for a while. That's why for me the past doesn't mean as much for OBJ. Like the Cleveland past doesn't mean as much to me because there's been like controversy, distrust, lack of connection since he's got there. Like since 2019, they've had this. And like,
so I have a question.
You can have all the questions you want.
I have a question just because, I mean, we argued this for a long time and we're not going to get there, obviously, to what the other person wants to hear. I don't think we're even arguing that, but
no.
Robert Woods was, I believe, wide receiver 11.
11 or 12, yeah. He was a wide receiver.
So you obviously see him, then you must see him as a wide receiver 1 the rest of the season. Because you say he's going to get more looks than Robert Woods.
I said he deserves more looks than Robert Woods. I could see him being.
Would you trade I'm trying to look at back end wide receiver 1s right here.
Robert Woods is 19 right now. 19.
After this week, right?
That hasn't updated yet, has it? Because we still have the games to go, so I don't think it's updated yet. So it's 19.
As you can tell, I don't have access to my computer, so I just have to trust what you say.
I mean, he averages 15 points a game, which puts him in the back end of actually mid-tier of wide receiver 2s. He's around Scary Terry and Amari Cooper. And 15. Brandon Cooks.
Yeah,
he's
okay.
19.
So would you rather have Keenan Allen or OBJ? Because Keenan Allen was averaging about the same as Robert Woods.
Keenan Allen is the number 1 for Chargers.
Okay. DJ Moore or OBJ?
Give me OBJ.
Terry or OBJ?
OBJ.
Brandon Cooks or OBJ?
OBJ.
AJ Brown or OBJ?
OBJ.
That's absolutely bizarro world. You are living on a different planet than I could ever hope to occupy. And let me tell you something. If you are on something, I think everybody should be. So
you are completely frozen.
Could you hear me?
I could hear you. It's just that your face was like you were saying everything, but in your doubting face of I don't actually mean this. I know you're right, Cody.
Yeah, well, I don't believe that. Now I don't even believe that I was ever frozen.
No, okay. I mean, I'll take a picture next time. Send it to you.
I'm with you, so I can take extra.
Top 30 to 35 wide receiver rest of season.
I think he's going to be a little bit better.
All right, so week 10 on. We're due week 10 on. I'll take that bet. He definitely outperforms that. Put it down. I'll put it down.
Okay. I think he outperformed that. I don't think that he's.
You said I'm with you. You just said I'm with you. Don't back out now. You already said it.
I said I don't buy this. I'm with you.
Nah, you're with you. I heard it.
So that's we have a very strong disagreement on that, and I do think I am worried a little bit about Cooper Kupp just because I think defenses are going to be able to key in on him a little bit more, at least in the next couple of weeks. We'll see how it works out. We don't know how it's going to work out. As far as this game goes, you seem pretty confident that you know how it's going to work out.
Super confident.
Yeah, I mean, as far as this game goes, we talked about last time. You're starting Ayuk, like, if you need to, depending on like how your receiver situation was looking, and hoping for another big game from him. I don't know that I feel great about it, but I feel better than I did the week before. And I don't think there's really anything else that's like a question. Are you throwing Odell out there tonight?
You kind of have to. I mean, like it's a Monday game. So like I said on Friday, and I told you last week when we talked about it, doing games on Monday, you kind of have to. Like, obviously there's going to be a couple rare people who have Van Jefferson and OBJ on the same team.
Which one are you starting tonight then?
OBJ.
I will say Van Jefferson tonight.
I mean,
I think OBJ might catch a touchdown to screw me on that.
That's just what I'm thinking. I'm thinking he gets a touchdown, and I think the numbers are going to be kind of even with Van Jefferson. But I think that he gets the touchdown, putting him over Van Jefferson for the game, just to like acclimate him to the fans, to the team, get him involved. Just like Cam Newton came out and got 2 touchdowns for the Carolina Panthers. I think OBJ goes out, gets a touchdown on the new team.
I'm going to take Van Jefferson. We'll talk about that bet tomorrow. We can talk about it. You just might not be able to see my excitement. Depending on how this goes. Into the questions on a retro episode of ours where we decided to go 2 hours. Got a question. I am down 4.64, and I got Rams defense. Thoughts? I think you should be okay.
Yeah, you got this.
Michael Chapp, I sent the Kelsey owner Pitts, Renfro, Moss. Renfro and Moss are bench pieces for me. Kelsey owner's team is in shambles. To him, even starting Hines, you think he accepts? I'm pulling for you.
Yeah, good luck.
I'm not sure that he takes that, but I'm pulling for you.
Yeah, good luck.
So let us know.
Yeah, keep me updated.
Second take extra had a week. Unreal. 5-0, 5 leagues. Do I win? I am up 23. He's got Samuel and I got Safford. I think you are okay.
You win.
This is going to be a controversial opinion.
That is second take extra. You are my number 1 fan, but my gosh, you are something else with these takes today.
Daryl over CH. I think Daryl has a role.
He has a role, but I think
that CH is more the guy though. Lead guy.
CH.
I had Jones and Dillon. Is Dillon a top 10 to 15 running back till Jones is back? I imagine that means. Yes. I think he's an RB. He's going to be ranked as an RB1.
He'll finish as an RB1, RB2 on the down weeks. I mean, he's playing Minnesota and Rams, so they have a chance to stop him.
Baker's not a top 10 quarterback. Definitely agree. I'd say he's somewhere in that 10-20 or 11 to 20 range.
He's a quarterback 2 for sure. Not a good quarterback 1.
I think I think this is just like in general and like the outside of fantasy.
Yeah, no, outside of fantasy too. I don't want Baker on my team.
Do I trade David Montgomery and Devontae Smith for Travis Kelce? I have a loaded 10-man PPR team: Mixon, Chubb, Aaron Jones, Kupp, Godwin, Diggs, but Fant at tight end. I probably would. Yes.
I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, you just don't.
Fant's not terrible. Montgomery could be a nice.
When are you going to start either of those guys, though?
he doesn't need to, but I mean, there's going to be I think Aaron Jones has a bye week coming up, 13, which is playoff, right? Is that not playoff?
No, it's not the playoffs.
Oh, never mind.
No bye
Send
weeks
it.
in the playoffs.
Oh, send it. Send it.
I would probably do it. I mean, does not, as I read about this, does not have AJ Dillon. If you could trade like an Aaron Jones and something instead, that would be cool. But I don't know if this person's team would allow for that. So I would do it if this is the only trade you could get.
Right.
I think Travis Kelce is just like irreplaceable, so much better than like any other tight end as far as replacement value. I think in that way, you have to do it. Before this week, Robert Woods was wide receiver 12.
Oh, okay. I didn't think
OBJ, wide receiver 1 rest of the season.
Potentially. Not the 30 to 35 you're saying.
Okay. I am reading through. It's awesome to see our boy Second Take Extra and Hartnell talking this out in the chat.
Yeah.
I do like that people can help each other out.
If you guys want input, come watch the video. Come communicate with Second Take Extra and
the whole community here around the fantasy football. Your Wildest Fantasy Football Show. I don't even know the name of my own show. I'm so out of it. I don't even know what's happening.
Short and sweet, honey.
Kelce owner is in win now mode. Can't afford to trade for Jones. I would probably still pull the trigger on. It's just Kelce. Like that puts your team. I don't think you ever regret trading for Travis Kelce. It's my take on it, especially when you're probably not using like David Montgomery versus Aaron Jones would have been the case there, but like you're 9-1. I think you're okay.
I'm with you.
I would do that. And it's like around that time, I think that's the big thing here. I did see Second Take Extra said depth is the most important key in fantasy. I agree. Like one of my good rosters right now, I built up depth so that around this time, I think depth is important until you get near the trade deadline. And then depending on how your team is, if you're sitting 9-1, 8-2, 7-3, like up top, I think that's the time to sell off your depth to give yourself the best possible starting lineup for the playoffs. And you're setting yourself up for those last 3 weeks, like handcuffs and just your best possible starting lineup, like selling off some of that depth to get the pieces that you need and selling it to people who need it for the playoffs. Now, this is a very particular situation, but if you are in the situation that Hartnell is in, I think that is a good idea. Thank you, Hartnell, for asking. Trusting our opinions. We'll leave you with this. Moe's or Chipotle. I don't know if Toadie's ever had Moe's.
There's a Moe's right next to the house.
Oh, beautiful.
There's literally anything you will want right down the road as far as food.
Toadie lives in heaven.
I do. Otherwise known as West Virginia. Get it? Almost heaven. West Virginia.
I'll let you go first just because.
Chipotle all day.
Okay, you are a disgrace of a human being. You know how ever hear this little thing called E. coli?
What?
Yeah. People eat Chipotle.
All right, so Kondo just completely froze, so I'm just gonna have to wrap it up, guys.
I can see my internet connection. It's actually perfect right now. It's perfect right now because it knows how pressing of an issue this is.
I think Kondo would agree.
You would even consider taking Chipotle over Moe's, knowing that E. coli is like a very dangerous thing.
I have only felt sick after I ate at Moe's.
I think you're just making that up.
No.
I don't know if there's a track record of enough people feeling sick.
Probably not. But like for me personally, this is my take. Moe's made me feel sick. Chipotle, great customer service. Every time I go there, they always say hi. Moe's, I don't even get the welcome to Moe's. I don't get it.
Well, I think that might just be your Moe's. I don't.
No, I think it's company policy. They have to say,
I wouldn't
welcome
put
to
that on
Mose.
all Moses.
I'm going to hold the vendetta. I mean, hey, if you get ran over by a train, you're going to have a vendetta against trains. It's what it is.
I don't know, man. It sounds like you let one sour experience really
Twice.
kill your whole vibe. Okay, they definitely said welcome to Mose if you went there twice.
Nope.
There's no chance.
Okay, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know. I don't trust that
opinion.
I would like to get I would love to get second take on the Mose versus Chipotle debate, or somebody's in the chat to settle this, because I do think it's Mose by a good mile. E. coli and options. They're just a lot more flexible with the amount of choices you get there. But as we were waiting on that, hopefully get something. I hope you enjoy this Clint Eastwood film of an episode that we just put out that had me freezing every 5 seconds, apparently.
It was terrific.
We did start off the episode by saying we got to keep it quick because
it did say short and sweet, and here we are back to 2 hours. So,
yep. So thank you all for watching. If you were to do so for the entire time, I don't think either of us could express how grateful we would be for that. It's unbelievable, just effort and persistence. So apparently the internet was pretty decent. It wasn't that bad. So I don't know what's going on. So thank you for watching. Second Take Extra said Mose, of course, because of the chips. And they give you more guacamole and sour cream. See, they're not finicky there. I agree with the Second Take Extra. I'm not going to speak too much on it. I think I've already said my piece. I do apologize for calling you a disgrace of a human being. I might have been caught up in the moment a little bit there. But Mose gave me a shirt on Cinco de Mayo that said Cinco de Mose. And they do that every year, if you were wondering. So I have pretty big allegiance to anyone who gives me a t-shirt. So I hope you accept my apology on behalf of that. But that's our show. So thank you guys for watching. And we will be back tomorrow to discuss waivers and the game tonight.
Yep.
And Hartnell, how's the offer before we go?
Oh, geez.
Aaron Jones and Deante Smith for Kelsey and Sutton. I mean, I kind of hate Sutton, but I don't think it matters. So, yeah.
Do what you got to do for your team.
It's up to you whether you would rather do Montgomery or Aaron Jones. I don't think it really
They're similar. Aaron Jones is going to miss time anyway, so might as well just get Travis Kelce. You're going to get productivity from right now. You don't need to
make sure that you secure that number 1 seed, especially if that locks you down for a bye or something like that. And you did say you like David Montgomery's schedule in the playoffs, right, and he was getting a ton of tread. So, and Aaron Jones was not. So, yeah, pulling the trigger in a good way on the trade. That's it. We're glad that we got that one in at the buzzer. Right. So, good luck to Hartnell, anybody who has decisions to make tonight, and Monday Night Football wishes to cast. We will see you tomorrow to break it all down, do waivers, and see if Cody accepts my apology, of course.